Hello, hello, hello. Please welcome my guest, John Shearer from mindfullymad.org. So, John, I understand you are a mindfulness master, if you will.
Yes,
Uh,
I am.
okay. Can you please elaborate on what that entails?
Sometimes people ask me, what makes you a mindfulness master? 9,000 hours of study into all aspects of mindfulness in all cultures is what's made me a master. I know who I am and I know why I'm here. And we all should do that as well.
I
Yeah,
agree. I
it's very
agree.
important.
That's amazing. So okay, so you said you've studied a lot. You said 9,000 hours. That's definitely something that one does master. Now, what got you into all this?
What got me into it was my own journey. In 1982, I died in a truck crash and was obviously revived. And I was pretty smashed up. My dog was killed,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
I had physical injuries and needed operations and things. But that was nothing compared to the 15 years of mental suffering that followed. I was diagnosed later that year with mental illness and sucked into the system, the mental health system. I was trapped 15 years, and I was in and out of, I was going to say psych wards, but you're not allowed to call them psych wards anymore. They're mental health units. And, I was depressed, I was manic, I was suicidal, I had electric shock treatment at one stage, I was on a smorgasbord of medications. And then in 1997, after 15 dark years, I call them now, years that I'm thankful for, by the way,
Mm,
because it's helped me become who I am today.
sure.
In 1997, on World Mental Health Day, which is coming up again in a couple of days, one of my favourite days, an old friend of mine knocked on my door and shared his story. And that story led to my spiritual awakening 2 days later, and my life changed. No
So
more
what
meds,
is this? Yeah,
no
the
more depression.
story.
Yeah.
What does this story entail?
Well, his story, he left Wagga Wagga, that's where I was living at the time, some 20 years before, and went to Sydney, the big smoke, to become a professional punter. And he specialised in trotters. And he went and met trainers and owners and got right into got right into it and became very successful and built a big house, started a family, and life was good. But then gambling got him
Mm,
and he went down
shame.
and he turned to drugs and then hit rock bottom. And then he found his way back and he shared his story with me. And then that's why I'm a huge fan of the ripple effect. It is always my hope that the people who are touched by my ripple, just like I was touched by his, then create a ripple of their own. That way we can change the world. One person at a time, we can. Governments and religions haven't been able to do it, but we can. And I really believe it's happening right now all over the world. People are waking up, and it's a beautiful thing, Corinne.
It is. It is. I mean, obviously, we're on the same page, and I'm sure your wife is as well, and my friends and who I circle with. And yeah, I believe in the ripple effect as well. And I'm wondering, what is it that brought him out of the darkness? Because you said he plunged down below. What was it that helped him rise above?
Yeah, well, spiritual awakening can happen in many different ways. For me, he sent me across the other side of town, and he had a friend there who was trying to start a home church. So was with religion, with Christianity, and he said I should go there on Sunday, which was the 12th of October. So I said, why not? I'm on the road to nowhere because at that time, mental health professionals told me that what I had was incurable. They told me I'd have to take medications for the rest of my life. and they told me that I'd never work again. And I was pensioned
Awful.
off. I was on disability. So I said, why not? I'll go. So I went to this house on a Sunday, and what I found there was a guy who I actually knew. I used to drive taxi with him, and he had a visiting elder, he called himself, from Albury, which is about 140 kilometres away, or 80 miles in your country. And he was there with a couple of musos, and they were having like a home church. They were trying to get something going.
Did you say
So I joined
musos?
in.
He was there with a couple of musos?
Musos is what we call musicians.
Oh, I was like, I think he was referring to that. I've never heard that before. Okay.
Okay.
Couple of musos.
Musos in Aussie. Yeah.
Awesome.
So anyhow, they had a service and sang some songs, and it was all beautiful. And then this elder, he asked if I wanted to be baptized. I said, sure, why not? You know, I'm on the road to nowhere. Sure, bring it on. Well, it turned out this guy carried a portable baptismal tank in the boot of his car. So he brought it in and they set it up in the backyard, and I'm glad it was spring, October in Australia, and I stripped down to my shorts and he baptised me.
Huh.
And you know, when I come up out of the water, and the tank was big enough, and I'm 6'2", it was big enough to fully immerse me. And I come up out of the water praying in tongues. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Oh my gosh.
I've researched it since, and it predates all religions. It goes way back, and we find it in various cultures too, like the North American Indian war dance, for one thing, is like tongues.
Okay.
The Maori haka is, and a lot of dancing, chanting are all considered tongues. Yeah, and I still pray that way today, and I love it because there's no mind in it. It's totally from the heart. Yeah,
Wow.
it's
So
a
he
beautiful
brought
thing.
you into religion, and then
Yep.
you started praying more, and then you started morphing or heading more towards mindfulness, probably, right?
Well, I felt the power of spirit, and I undertook a very intensive 4-year study of the Bible, and something that I'll never regret, that's for sure. I now call that my apprenticeship into spirituality. And then God, or soul, as I call God these days, SOL.
Hmm.
Soul is an ancient Roman word for the sun. And the sun does me for source energy. And I have relationship with the sun. I sure pray. I speak every morning at sunrise, because I'm a sunrise sort of person. I connect, give thanks, and say, what are we doing today, soul? And then I pause my mind and listen deeply, yeah, and get my daily instruction. And
Beautiful.
it works a treat. Even throughout the day, I connect. And so, yeah,
That's
that that's
amazing.
that's been my journey. Now I really don't have any religion, but I have what I do have. You know, I really value. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, and it's what's missing in mental health, Corinne. I really believe that. And I was just recently having a conversation with the manager of mental health and alcohol and other drugs in my health district.
Mm.
Australia is zoned in health districts, and she agreed with me that what's missing in mental health is culture and spirituality. And she said, "But how do we do it, John? It's a tough one, but it needs to happen. We
I
need to
think
get back."
yeah, I believe in unity and spirituality. I also believe that we're supposed to go towards, I guess, the religion we were born into. And if people don't, that's fine, of course. But I think that there's one God, one soul, one source energy, and we'll call whatever we want to call it. But I believe in that unity that brings us all together. Yeah, the spirituality part of it, 100% should be there in order for us to combat mental health and just bring people together and open up their hearts and connect. So tell me more about these books. Tell me what books. You've written books. What's going on? Talk to me, John.
Yeah, well, it's been quite a journey, and I really see myself these days as a channel. And when you become that way, and we can all do that, Albert Einstein said that the most valuable thing, or the only valuable thing, is intuition. And he's right, because the things he invented and all the clever stuff, he was channeling it. But we don't have to be Albert Einstein to do that. We can all do that. Yeah. It's available to us, that divine wisdom and intelligence is available.
So how many books have you written?
2.
Okay. Yeah. And the titles?
And in 2014, I created a Facebook event and I called it Mindfulness Day, because we have a day for everything else. And I invited Australians with mental suffering to the event, and 4,700 people clicked on it and joined in.
Wow.
So I went to the universe and said, what are we going to do with this response? I was amazed. And what I did do was launch what I called Mindful May. And at dawn every day, I made a list of words, 30 words, most to do with mindfulness, because I've been studying for 5,000 hours at that stage. And I made a list of 30 words and put them in order. And at dawn every day, I wrote a blog on that word and posted it to the event wall. And it was a life-changing event, not only for me, but for hundreds of people whose lives were changed by what I wrote or what I was. And at the end of the event, I announced that I was going to turn the event into a book, and I called the book Mindful Actions. And I've been seeing them all over the world ever since. Then about 3 years ago, I decided to deliver Mindful Actions, or I started with Mindful Actions and expanded it to 52 weeks and turned it into a 52-week course. And I targeted people diagnosed with schizophrenia and psychosis, bipolar, hearing voices, that sort of thing. And it's been hugely successful.
Wow.
And because I've been delivering it for 3 years now, and I just love seeing people get their lives back.
So how do you direct them in that regard? Is it just sitting with them oneself every day and just showing up and meditating and witnessing? Like, how have you helped
No
transform?
meditation. I don't teach meditation, because you hear mindfulness and meditation. They're different. Meditation is something we make time to do. And when we meditate, we're practicing mindfulness, that's for sure. That's a beautiful thing. But mindfulness isn't something you make time to do. It's something you live. And yeah, and that was my first book. It's got the ripple effect on it. And
lovely.
Yeah, and this is my recently released book.
I love the cover.
52-week course.
Okay.
And how I've been delivering that is sending an email out every Friday, and then it's a mentoring service, and they have regular calls with me.
Okay. And this is found through the mindfullymad.org website.
Yes, and well, just what you can do is Google Be Mindful, pause, connect. That's how I've simplified 9,000 hours of study, Corinne. And I'll just explain that for your listeners, okay? Be mindful is a key thought that I teach. Anytime we notice unhelpful or negative thoughts, or if we notice our mind in the past or the future, or just somewhere else, not where our body is, then we use the instruction, be mindful. And it's a heart instruction to the mind. Our heart is connected to our soul. So we tell our mind, be mindful. And we allow that to trigger a pause. And it only takes a few seconds. And we can do this throughout our day, and we should. We pause. And in that pause, we connect. And we connect in 3 ways. We connect with where we are, and we use our 5 senses for that: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch if we're with a partner. And we connect with who we are, who we're with full presence. That's not thinking about what to say next or having any agenda, just being present. It's the greatest gift you can give your loved ones. And the third way we connect is with our source energy. And I often say the power of mindfulness is in the silence between our thoughts. And the more silence we create throughout our day, the more power to us, because out of that silence comes that divine creativity. It turns on our intuition, and the next step comes. And it's just amazing once you start living a life of synchronicity like I have been for years, and you probably are as well, and everybody can if they connect. Yeah.
100%. That's so
And
wonderful.
the universe uses all sorts of tools and methods and people, you know, to get through to us, you know, to lead us where we should be led. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And so what does your day-to-day look like? You wake up, you said very early.
Yes, I'm an early riser. I
Ear-
love connecting with soul, and who knows? Every day is different. You never know what's on.
okay.
And I have a calendar, of course. And yeah, life's beautiful. It really is.
And so you wake up and you thank God, you thank soul. So do you find yourself taking a moment and pausing throughout the day? With the
Oh,
advice that you give other people in the book, do you find yourself trying to come back to the moment? Are there triggers or are there distractions, if you will, that enter your mind?
there's a heap of distractions out there, but
So even with the
when
master,
when we practice for a time, and it takes time, when we practice, be mindful, pause, connect. It doesn't take too long, and then we don't need the hard instruction anymore.
mm-hmm.
We just pause and connect. It becomes automatic, and it's a beautiful thing.
Wonderful.
But no one will believe that until they start practicing. A very simple practice actually is deceptively simple.
Mm.
Some people think it's that simple that it can't possibly work. But when we look at ancient culture, and here in Australia, the Aboriginal culture is the oldest on the planet, which hasn't had any other cultures interbreeding with it, some 40 to 60,000 years until the Englishmen came here. And where I live on the east coast of Australia, there's a word Ghana, Gan apostrophe
Ghana.
Na, Ghana. You can remember that because it's like Ghana. There's lots of gunners out there. Well, it's Ghana. And Ghana practice has been used for millennia by Aboriginals and handed down through storytelling from the spiritual elder to the spiritual elder, so on. And it's used to overcome trauma. And anybody who has mental disorder or even addiction disorders has trauma. And Ghana practice has been used, like I said, to overcome trauma, like a death in the family, for example.
Sure.
So a death in the family, they go to the spiritual guru and they're sent out bush, which is what we call nature, to practice deep listening, which is listening beyond our thoughts. And when we do that, and nature speaks, if we're quiet enough to listen, nature speaks. An animal might run out of the bush, or three birds might land on a branch near us. And you know, if we've got things on our mind, we get answers. Nature has a way of connecting with us.
Do you mean that, like, because I know in my own personal world, being spiritual and the things that I look up in my dictionaries are, if I see, yes, a specific animal, like a squirrel cross my path, a raccoon, a rat, I'll look up the spiritual meaning. Is that what you mean?
Well, it's better to make your own meaning. It's like,
Oh, I look it up.
yeah, well, you can do that for starters, sure, and believe someone else's theories, but it's better to make up your own. It's like
Well, that's
numerology.
when you're way more connected to source than maybe perhaps I am. But like I look it up and it makes so much sense. It applies to my life. But yes, for sure. If you listen, you can get the answers and it's all about practicing to get there. I agree.
Excellent, Corinne. You're
Yeah,
spot on.
I
Yeah.
agree. And it's your intuition, it's the knowing. I think you're very in tune with the knowing. I get my knowing messages in other ways. Um, like I believe when a feather is on the ground, that's our angels. They're telling us they're nearby. And it's usually when you're in a sad moment, you might feel alone in the moment. And that's what happens for me. And it's just the most comforting thing, knowing that there's just so much more beyond this moment in my first world problems.
Excellent,
You
Lynn.
know? Yeah. Thanks.
And that's the answer, awareness. Because when we start living in awareness, we notice these little things.
Yeah.
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 But of course,
Absolutely.
a lot in the world, their minds are so busy because they're stressed out and anxious, especially right now. And then source can't get through. Yeah. So the
That's true.
practice is simple. Be mindful, pause, connect. Anyone listening, write it down, put a sticky note somewhere, and start practicing that very simple practice and
Hmm.
start connecting.
And on that note, where can we find you? So we know your website and your Facebook page.
Yeah, well, I've created a new website to promote my book, and it's only available from me. I self-published. I published it myself, wrote it myself, designed the cover myself, and you can only buy it from me. I've got it
Great.
printed at this moment. I've got to work out how to put it on Amazon and do all that stuff.
That
But
you will.
John
That you will.
Shearer.xyz. John
Ah,
Shearer.xyz.
that's really fun. I love the ending.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. And it's just been a pleasure. And I thank you for taking the time to speak to our guests. Thank you. Thank you very, very, very much. Nice
Thank
meeting you,
you, Lynn,
John.
and keep up the good works. Keep shining your
Thanks.
light. It's
Thanks.
beautiful.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye.